Good evening. It's now 6:30 and I call to order the regular meeting of the Victoria City Council. We begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. We invite you to stand and join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda tonight is announcements. The City Council will hold a workshop on Monday, February 28th at 5 p.m. to kick off our citizens survey and discuss the first quarter updates as part of the city's comprehensive review of the city code. During this workshop, the council will also interview applicants for Planning Commission. All meetings of the City Council are open to the public and held in the council chambers at City Hall unless otherwise noted. We encourage anyone wanting to attend our council meetings in person to contact our city clerk in advance so we can ensure physical distancing. In other announcements, we are now recruiting for open seats on all of our citizen advisory boards. If you'd like to apply or learn more about Planning Commission, Park and Rec Committee, or the Senior Advisory Committee, please check out our website or contact our city clerk. Planning Commission interviews will be held on Monday, February 28th during the council workshop, and Park and Rec and Senior Advisory Committee interviews will be held on Monday, March 14th during the council workshop. Shortly, we'll be opening up applications for our Citizens Academy, which will be held in April and May. Annually, we invite residents to spend a couple hours every Wednesday evening for 5 weeks for a hands-on, behind-the-scenes look at how the city operates. If you were ever curious about what the inside of a sewer looks like, or how we clean the water so you can drink it, what it looks like to operate a snowplow, and so much more, this academy might just be for you. Follow us on social media and watch our website for more information soon. The city is also looking for applications for its Community Builders Award. Each year, the Community Builder Program recognizes an individual, group, business, or organization that has, through their outstanding volunteerism or exemplary action, demonstrated an extraordinary commitment to making Victoria a better place today and for the future. Nominations for consideration must be received by March 31st, and applications can be found on the city website at ci.victoria.mn.us. We do have a proclamation this evening, which I will read from the dais. It is a proclamation honoring African American History Month, February 2022. Whereas since the bicentennial year of 1976, Americans of all walks of life have come together during the month of February to honor Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. And whereas the observation of African American History Month calls our attention to the continued need to battle racism and build a society that lives up to its democratic ideals. And whereas the City of Victoria prides itself in being a welcoming community where all citizens, past, present, and future, are respected and recognized for their contributions to our community, the state, the country, and the world. And whereas the City of Victoria celebrates our community's diversity and welcome all people who live, work, and go to school here, regardless of their national origin, color, race, sexual orientation, or gender identity, financial or socioeconomic status, or political opinion. And whereas Council holds the intention to listen, to learn, and to keep an open mind when engaging with members of our community, business leaders, and community partners. And now, therefore, we, Mayor and Council members of the City of Victoria, do hereby proclaim February 2022 as African American History Month in the City of Victoria, and urge all Victoria residents to join together in making this period of dedication to the principles of justice and equality for all people. Our next order of business is to adopt the final agenda. Council, can I have a motion to adopt the final agenda?
Motion to adopt final agenda.
We have a motion by Councilman Roberts. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to our next item, and that is the open forum, which is an opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda and not in application form that will be coming to the council at a future date. There is no one who has registered in advance to speak, and I'm wondering if there's anyone in the audience who would like to address the council. Anyone in the audience? Seeing no one, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine, administrative, and don't require deliberation, or are housekeeping items that are required by law. Consent agenda items are approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Ms. Hardy, does staff wish to pull anything from the consent agenda?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Council members, is there anyone on council who wishes to pull any of the items from the consent agenda? Anyone in the audience wishing to pull an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, council, may I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Motion.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We're now on to our regular agenda. This evening, we have a few items on our regular agenda. The first item, 6.1, is Carver County Communities of Belonging Program. Community and Economic Development Director Marty Dahl will kick us off this evening. Mr. Dahl, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I will be very brief. I did include some information related to the Communities of Belonging program initiative in your background packet, but I think better suited to speak towards the initiative is Patrick Stieg, who is with the Carver County Public Health Department. He's a public health specialist there, so with your permission, we'll ask him to come up and provide a brief overview of the initiative.
Absolutely. Mr. Stieg, please. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and share with you some information about this new initiative that we're doing here in Carver County. The initiative comes from our Community Health Improvement Plan, also known as our CHIP, and we have a Community Health Improvement Plan for the years 2020 through 2024. And the plan was developed by residents from throughout Carver County, many different sectors of the community, which made up our Public Health Advisory Council. And so the plan really is a community plan, and our Public Health Department is here not only to support the residents who developed the plan, but all the residents in our county who are now going to be implementing that plan. The plan actually consists of 4 priority issues around conditions which can either support or detract from people having an optimal level of mental and physical health throughout their lifespan. And each priority issue has 2 to 3 goals. And for a total of 10, and the entire plan, there's an action committee for each of those 10 goals that focus on the implementation of that plan. There we are. So one of those 10 CHIP goals is stated here, which we refer to as the well-being goal. And as you can see, it talks about making well-being a shared value by having conversations in the community about how health starts in our families, in our schools, in our workplaces, in our playgrounds, in our parks, and in the air we breathe and the water we drink. So then our committee who developed this initiative wanted to define a little bit what they mean by well-being. And they view it very comprehensively for both individuals and for communities. Well-being includes opportunities for and fair treatment in education and training, information and learning, employment, childcare, housing, recreation, food, law enforcement, transportation, and healthcare, as well as actions around respect, dignity, cultural expression, justice, and much more. It includes social and emotional needs like a sense of safety and belonging, and also social connection and life satisfaction. So then our committee went on to talk about, well, what do we mean by a community of belonging? And they said a community of belonging welcomes all people at all times. Similar to the proclamation that you did earlier this evening, it doesn't matter their age, their gender, their race, their ethnicity, their language, their faith traditions, their income, their occupation, sexual orientation, political ideology, physical ability, or anything else that makes them the unique individual that they are. So then they went on to define, well, what do we mean by community? Because community can be defined in many different ways. By some, it's a physical location, and in some, it's another matter of connection between groups of people. And thinking of a community as some type of a physical location, they decided that at least for now, we're going to let that be kind of self-defined, where people live, work, learn, and play or worship together. But it can kind of come down to where if you were to ask a person, what community are you from, then that would be their community. So, but for this initiative, it's currently being viewed as one of the 11 municipalities that are, of course, geographically based in Carver County. And a municipality certainly includes city government, but not only city government. It can include many community sectors, from schools and businesses to service clubs and faith communities and nonprofit agencies, as well as city departments and city commissions. And we are just getting this initiative underway. We've heard from people from 8 different Carver County communities that want to create an inclusive, welcoming community in their local area, both again for their current residents and their future residents. So these are the communities that have begun a local initiative in the past couple of months. We're really thrilled about the interest that's been expressed here in Victoria, and I'm happy that you have representatives here tonight from your various commissions and committees also, because they certainly have the opportunity to be a part of this. So I wanted to talk just briefly about how the initiative will be implemented, because we know that different communities that are involved in this initiative have different needs in order to move forward, and they're also all starting at a different place. So the Wellbeing Committee, along with our department and presumably other partners, want to give each community flexibility to go about this in their own way, but we will be here to support each participating community with the resources they need over the course of the next 2 to 3 years minimum to build their own capacity and a solid foundation for the creation of their own community of belonging. And some of those resources could include utilizing organizations that have experience in helping communities and agencies to create a welcoming, inclusive community, such as Marnita's Table, the YMCA's Equity Innovation Center, and Living Room Conversations, to name just a few. It'll vary from community to community depending upon what they need and want. So just in wrapping up it then, I just wanted to state that the committee who developed this see a well-functioning society resting on a web of mutuality and a willingness amongst all people to share enough of with one another so that we can accomplish what none of us can alone. And inclusive communities where everyone feels they belong are healthy and vibrant, where residents thrive, and communities of exclusion languish, as do their residents. So that's a little overview of what this is all about. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Mr. Steed. Council, questions for Mr. Steed? I don't see anything.
All right.
You've done a nice job outlining that. Thank you so much.
If not, thank you very much. I again appreciate the interest that you have here for this initiative here in Victoria. We look forward to working with you. In addition to the handout that you received, I'll leave behind for you a bookmark that has our initiative logo and tag on it, as long as a few of our key messages that we're talking about with this initiative. So if it's okay, I'll share them with you, Dana, for distribution.
That'll be wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Steed.
Thank you.
With that, we are looking for a motion to adopt a resolution of support. So could I have a motion?
Motion to adopt resolution of support for Carver County Communities of Belonging.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. I have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on, item 6.2 is our Park and Rec Committee's year-end report. Kicking us off this evening is our Park and Rec Director, Ann Monkey. Ms. Monkey, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are excited to present to you this evening our work report for 2021. The Parks and Recreation Committee spent a lot of time on different projects, and this evening Judy Iverson, who is our Vice Chair, is here this evening to present that to you. So with that, I will turn it over to Judy Iverson.
Thank you. Ms. Iverson, please come to the podium. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So the Park and Rec Committee members, Chair is Larry Schultz. We have Jeanette June, Claudio Groppetti, Mary Larson, Brian Vincent, Don Wittenberg, and I am Judy Iverson, the Vice Chair. And tonight I will provide you with some of the information about the work we completed with our committee in 2021. Number one, and one of our proud moments, was the Wasserman Lake Preserve. It was completed in partnership with the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District. We opened in time for this past summer, and it's been a welcome addition to the park system by our residents. This year, small groups will be able to rent our shelter for gatherings, and we are planning for recreation programs such as snowshoeing, nature hikes, and camps. Second, we completed year 2 of the Emerald Ash Borer Management Plan. The city treated 324 park and boulevard trees, and residents treated on private property 101 trees in an effort to save our largest and our healthiest ash trees. We will be continuing with year 3 of the plan in 2022. Thirdly, we reviewed and recommended park dedication requirements for 3 new developments. One of the committee's primary roles is to plan parks for today and for the future. We look at the requirements for park dedication and evaluate where the parks should go and in the new developments, and they are based on our comprehensive plan. And fourth, we identified, evaluated, and developed criteria for, and then ranked and recommended 35 different park projects for inclusion into the capital improvement plan and the long-term plan. The committee spent several meetings looking at all the current and future park needs for our community, and the criteria was developed so that we could rank them, and the final list of projects was provided to the City Council for inclusion in the CIP and the long-term parks plan. Outdoor pickleball courts rose to the top of the list because of the growth in popularity, and it is a sport that we've discovered is great for all ages and all abilities. The committee visited other courts in the area, and we spent time determining an appropriate location for them. In November, the committee recommended that the recreation center would be the best location for the new outdoor courts. Fifth, we completed an evaluation of current and future park maintenance needs and what costs we would need to maintain them. City has many parks and facilities, and they will all need repairs and replacement. From picnic tables to parking lots, they will all need to be maintained. The projected budgets will not keep up with that maintenance, so therefore additional resources will be needed. Sixth, we recommended the purchase of new software for the operations of the Park and Rec Department, as well as at the Recreation Center. We also recommended playground replacement equipment at the Swiss Mountain neighborhood. Last but not least, the committee spent over a year working on the Bavaria East Trail, but unfortunately, we were not able to get it done. The community has placed a high priority on completing trail gaps, and as we have all learned, these are very difficult projects to complete. We will be working on trail gap projects next year on our priority list, and this year, our priority list this year, and we hope that we can get one of them completed. So thank you for the opportunity this evening. We are looking forward to a productive 2022. And also on behalf of our committee, I would like to offer my thanks to our director, Ann, for all her gracious help and guidance for our committee through the year.
Thank you, Ms. Iverson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please share our gratitude with that entire committee. You guys do good, hard work for us. We
Thank you.
appreciate you doing all that heavy lifting and bringing those recommendations to
Well,
council.
thank
It is a really important part of our process, and we appreciate it so much. Council, any questions or comments? There's a group of people who are thrilled about the pickleball thing, I'm sure.
I know, the pickleball, we just, every time we tried to look at other things, would this be, Anne had us, like I said, we had a spreadsheet, 35 choices, and rankings. It was about a dozen rankings, like which is most important, which would be the most value, which would be most appreciated, what's cost effective, what's broad age groups, disability. Pickleball.
Yeah.
Turns up
Plus, we
everywhere.
have, one of our members is a fanatic with pickleball, so she kind of moved the whole.
Feels like a plant in that
And I,
committee, doesn't
and I
it?
have to tell you, your final decision, I agree with wholeheartedly.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I just heard something on national news today, something about pickleball. It's just become the great thing, so. So maybe when I retire, I'll become a pickleballer. Who knows? It'll give me a purpose.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your good work. All right, anything else from the council on this? All right, there's no action being requested. This is just for an update. The next item is the Planning Commission's year-end report. And kicking off that item is our Community and Economic Development Director, Marty Dahl. Mr. Dahl, again, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Yes, to echo what Ann noted for the Parks and Rec Committee, the Planning Commission was also very busy over 2021. Did a lot of hard and important work providing recommendations on several different developments and variances and ordinances and the like. So with that, I will turn it over to Planning Commission Chair John Iverson to provide the report.
Mr. Iverson, join us. So Mr. and Mrs. Iverson are a power couple here in Victoria, chairing our committees, and we appreciate that. So thanks for bringing your retirement days to work for the city of Victoria.
Well, both of us spend quite a few evenings in meetings, so, but
It does not go unnoticed, and it's much appreciated. So Mr.
good.
Iverson, join us, or tell us about the Planning Commission.
very good. Well, thank you for the opportunity. Number one, to be on the committee and to be part of the effort of the whole thing. We do have a prepared presentation that we will do for your review. It will be by month, and it'll go into a fair amount of detail, and I'll try and keep comments to a minimum on it at the same time. So the first one is that in January, we did adopt the 2021 Planning Commission Work Plan and Meeting Calendar. Hold a public hearing and consider variance for Waterbrook Fellowship requesting encroachment into the 100 ordinary high water line, which was not approved. At the same time, in February, we did continue discussion on revisions to the tree preservation and replacement ordinance. That was one of 5. And we also held a public hearing and considered updates to the City of Victoria zoning map, and that was one of 4 at the same time. So in March, we did review the sketch plan for Madeline Trail, continued discussion on tree preservation and replacement ordinance, reviewed a sketch plan for the shores of March Lake, held a public hearing and considered a conditional use permit amendment for Humanity Alliance, which we did approve. In April, we elected myself chair and Christian Peterson as vice chair. We held a public hearing and considered preliminary plat, annexation, and zoning for what is now Hunter's Brook, what's defined as Hunter's Brook, renamed. We held a public hearing and considered vacation of park designation and a minor subdivision of city-owned lot and parkland to create a buildable residential lot, which was approved at the same time too. And that certainly made sense. Reviewed the sketch plan for for what is now defined as March Hollow. In May, we held a public hearing and considered preliminary plat, comprehensive plan amendment and rezoning for Madeline Trail. And then we continued discussion on revision of the tree preservation and replacement ordinance, which is a big deal in the scheme of the whole thing, and it has to be done right. So it will get completed when we get to that point. Held a public hearing and considered amendments to Victoria Municipal Code Chapter 107 for subdivisions. Continued discussion on the tree preservation replacement ordinance. Considered the final plat for Hunter's Brook First Edition. And then reviewed the mid-year report for the City Council. And in July, we held a public hearing and considered amendments to the tree preservation and replacement ordinance. Considered the final plat for Madeline Trail, which has been approved and is now under construction. Discussed ordinance 414, designated predatory offender residency restrictions. Discussed that in detail. In August, we held a public hearing and considered preliminary plat, annexation, and zoning for what is now defined as Marsh Hollow. Held a public hearing and considered preliminary plat and zoning for the shores of Marsh Lake, and then considered amendments with discussion to the predatory offender residency restrictions ordinance. In September, we held a public hearing and considered a variance for a swimming pool fence at 6455 Hawks Point Lane, which we approved. We held a public hearing and considered an amendment to shoreline classification and land use ordinance. That's one that we have gone in a tremendous amount of detail on at the same time. I think Greg will confirm that. And we have gone in depth into residential zoning districts and the definition of the 4 different districts at the same time. And then in October, we held a joint city council workshop and discussed downtown West and what to do and how to do it. Considered a final plat for the shores of Marsh Lake, and then continued with a residential zoning district discussion and PUD rather, excuse me. And then in November, we were in a joint workshop with you and the City Council on the Urban Land Institute panel, and we at our last meeting we decided to put that back on the agenda again, and it's worth going back through. So there's some things that we can do with that. In December, we reviewed the sketch plat for the Arboretum Convenience Commercial Development Proposal, and we approved that in principle and to move that forward. So that'll continue in the discussion. We then held a public hearing and considered a variance for rear yard setback for 1975 Primrose Lane. Another one of those that it may well be pretty straightforward, but like all variances, there's an awful lot of detail in it, and it was approved. And then had a an additional residential zoning district discussion and residential land use. So the accomplishments, one of them that was brought up in our last meeting as something that that everyone was in favor, and again, I'll toss it to Greg, that he had brought it up and said that that having us attend any on a schedule, attending a city council meeting, and it's a real opportunity for learning, for continuity, and for education at the same time. So glad that we were doing that. We'll continue that. We held we had a whole bunch of public hearings, but heard and provided recommendations on sketch plats, preliminary plats, variances, conditional use permits. And there was four different sketch plats, 4 different preliminary plats, 3 final plats, 3 variances, 1 conditional use permit, and then a review of downtown parking, which was tabled by you and the city council, and will come up for discussion in depth, I'm sure, in the near future. Reviewed our tree and preservation replacement. We have amendments that were adopted by the city council on July 26th of 2021. And the downtown design and placemaking standards is a topic that will come up in the very near future. Residential zoning and PUD review, several meetings were held. Discussion is ongoing, and it's another one of those that it's got to be done right, and we have to have all the information. So we did a review for the zoning code, updated the zoning map, subdivision ordinance, predatory offender ordinance, tree preservation ordinance, of course, shoreline ordinance. We had a lot, the Smithtown lot park vacation that we did that made an awful lot of sense at the same time. And then we had a mid-year and end-of-year report that we completed. And so in our work plan, we will hear and provide recommendations to the city council on all sketch plats, preliminary plats, and variances, and conditional and use permits and other planning and land use. And I think in part what, one of the things that we view ourselves doing is we are, to a large extent, the research for the city council. We will continue to review residential zoning districts and make recommendations to the city council. We will review and provide recommendations to the city council on sign regulation ordinance. Interesting discussion. We will participate in discussions relating to potential implementation of rental licensing program. A bunch of detail there also. Review and provide recommendations on development within Downtown West. Review potential ordinance additions, amendments to address placemaking standards. We will review and provide recommendations on development within the small area, the Victoria Works area, development as things move closer, and discuss developments for new commercial zoning districts. I think that's one that everyone is excited about, getting something moving on that at the same time. We will review and provide recommendations to the city council on other zoning sections as presented by staff. We will conduct follow-up discussions on affordable housing and provide recommendations to the city council. It's been the topic of discussion at numerous meetings. We'll hold workshops, learning sessions on transportation and traffic impacts on development. I'm a big fan of joint workshops of that nature with the Planning Commission and the City Council. We will provide mid-year and end-of-year report on work plan progress to the City Council. And I will, as I've stated before to most of you, that the work that Marty and Isaac do, they quite frankly make us truly look like we know what we're doing. And so I'm forever indebted to them. I'm forever indebted to Dana and all of city staff at the same time for making all of this stuff work, because it really is a team effort. I think in the most basic sense, and I think with the team effort, I think there's been some real good results. So thank you again, Marty, and appreciate it. So yeah, any questions? Any comments?
Mr. Iverson, again, we want to say thank you to you and your planning commission for all the heavy lifting that you do. You guys are actually our research department, which is very helpful, and with the support of staff, you guys do wonderful work for us. So again, express our gratitude to the rest of your commission. We appreciate you.
Well, they're a very sharp group, very knowledgeable group, and a group that has accomplishments that are pretty remarkable from my standpoint. I've made the comment before that normally what I do is I'll be the last one to have any questions for any of the developers. And by the time it gets around to me, everything has been asked. So I think that's good news.
Yeah.
So
We are very, very fortunate in the city of Victoria to have so many people who bring their skills to volunteer for us, and we're so appreciative of that. So with that, council, questions or comments for Mr. Iverson and the Planning Commission? Thank you to Mr. Evansky, who's here in the audience today.
Mayor, members of the council, just take a quick second to.
Come on up to the podium so we can.
You have to talk into the microphone.
I'll just take a quick second to praise Chair Iverson. We have a lot of new players on the Planning Commission this year, as you know, bringing a diverse background. And I lead a fair number of groups within my professional life, and this is one of the groups where I've seen most quickly come together as a team with shared values, bringing ideas that can be freely brought up without any prejudgment about the ideas. And then everybody has the shared value of wanting to get things done for the city, for developers, and at the same time hold people with a fair degree of accountability, because accountability is what brings the ideas and crystallizes them and makes them that much better. So I appreciate Chair Iverson leading our group, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve this city. So thank you.
Thank you for those lovely comments.
Thank you so much.
thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Council, questions? Comments?
I don't have a question. I just wanted to say that with what you're proposing to get accomplished this year, I'm very excited about. So it looks really good.
Well, I think one of the other unique things about that is that we've had we haven't had a full year, with the whole, Zoom meetings, and there's been a number of different meetings that we've missed. So Marty does a good job of keeping us on task and keeping us moving. So
Good.
it's a team effort.
Yes, it is.
Thank you again.
Very good. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
All right, well, we don't have any action to take on this. This is informational only, so if there's nothing further from council, we'll move on. Our final item on the regular agenda is the sketch plat review for the new Lennar development, the Brookmore. And presenting this evening, back again by popular demand, Community and Economic Development Director Marty Dahl.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Yes, we do, yeah, that's fine, yep. As you mentioned, we are reviewing the sketch plat for the Brookmore development, which is being proposed by Lennar. Just as a reminder, you've all been through this rodeo plenty of times, but no approvals or actions are taken at this sketch plat concept level. It's really to provide guidance to assist the applicant in any subsequent preliminary plat application. As is typical for the sketch plat process, property owners within 350 feet of the subject properties were notified and invited to participate in a neighborhood meeting. Sorry, I didn't change that from the Planning Commission. Not this meeting, a neighborhood meeting, which information was included in your background packet and we'll go over later in the presentation. So the property in question is located at 925 78th Street and 1100 78th Street. It is 3 parcels currently located south of Madeline Trail and Hartwood, north of Savannah Valley and Holy Family, and both on the east and western side of a future Cochilla Lane extension. The property is approximately 34 acres with about 25 of those being developable. It is currently zoned agricultural, and there is a request from the applicant to rezone to PUD with R1 underlying zoning. The comprehensive plan does guide this area for low-density residential, which is consistent with the proposal, which is currently 80 single-family homes, which would equate to approximately 3 units per acre. That is within that range. The property is currently primarily agricultural with tillable farmland. There are some small wetlands in the property that are proposed to be preserved. There are currently 2 homes and some accessory structures that would be proposed to be removed with development. And the applicant has indicated that their current plans would be to develop this property in phases, with the first phase of development in 2022 being west of Cochilla Lane and the second phase in 2023 east of Cochilla Lane. The sketch layout was included in your background packet, and we can come back to this slide once we get to discussion. As I mentioned, the proposal is currently for PUD for this development, as it does not meet the R1 residential standards. So the applicant is proposing 8,800 square foot minimum lots, 68 foot wide minimum width, 130 foot minimum depth, 9 foot side yard setbacks on each side, a 25 foot front yard minimum setback, 30-foot rear yard setback, and a maximum impervious surface of 4,500 square feet. This proposal is very consistent with what was recently approved by the City Council for the Madeline Trail development. There are currently some required buffer and screening in this area, so the applicant is proposing to adhere to the required 25-foot landscape buffer on all double-fronted lots. Currently, there are 4 within the development, as well as a 15-foot landscape buffer for the corner lots along Cochilla. The developer has also indicated that if possible, they will try to provide some small berms or elevation along those areas to further screen the rear yards of homes. Currently, there is not park required per the city's comprehensive plan in this area, but as the council may recall, there was some discussion when the Madeline Trail development came forward, just to the north of this development, of potentially a desire for seeing some parkland to serve these new neighborhoods as well as some of the existing neighborhoods. So the applicant, based on staff feedback, has proposed a 3-acre park on the property along Cochilla Lane. The number of units would result in 3.73 acres of parkland dedication being required. So in addition to the parkland, the applicant would satisfy the remainder of their dedication either through fee or potential trail corridor credits. The Parks and Recreation Committee was planning to review this park proposal at their recent meeting. That meeting unfortunately had to be canceled, so they will be looking at this proposed park on February 22nd. Currently, as proposed, there is an 8-foot bituminous trail on one side of Cochia Lane, which would be required on this collector roadway. The trail would need to cross at some point within the development, as north of this development, the trail is on the east side of Cochia, and south of this development, the trail is on the west side of Cochia. So the current proposal is to cross at the intersection near the park, but we to make that crossing as we move forward. There are also some additional trail connections being proposed from the development to the north into the park area, as well as to connect the trail in Savannah Valley. Sidewalk is currently being proposed per city standards, 6-foot wide concrete sidewalks installed on one side of all local streets, as is shown in blue below. Access to this development will be provided by several roadway connections. So an extension of Cochia Lane would provide access to a primary intersection east and west into this development, as well as connections from the roadway network from the north and Madeline Trail on Obsidian Way and Jade Lane. The cul-de-sac that's being shown to the west is at 27 homes, which is under the fire code maximum of 30 homes for a single access. So would adhere to that fire code provision. The applicant is proposing to construct Cochia Lane, which would provide through the development, which would provide that final connection from Highway 5 to the north to 86th Street to the south. All local streets include 60 feet of right-of-way and are proposed to be constructed to city standards. Sanitary sewer is proposed to be connected to the stub sewer from Madeline Trail, as well as brought up from the south in Savannah Valley. Similarly, water would be intended to be connected from the stubbed water line in Madeline Trail, as well as up from the north from the Savannah Valley development. This property is located within the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, so it is subject to their rules and will need to meet their requirements. The plans currently show stormwater features, wetlands, and buffers on outlots, which would need to be deeded to the city and cannot encroach on private lots. And then access will need to be provided to all stormwater ponds in accordance with city standards. So as I noted, there was a neighborhood meeting held on January 12th. There were approximately 20 or so neighbors that attended that meeting. Just to quickly go through this, some of the feedback that was received, it was also included in your packet, but there were some questions about tree tagging and inventory and some concerns regarding grading impacts to tree roots located on private property. Some concerns regarding steep storm pond slopes and whether retaining walls would be needed. The applicant had indicated they're still working on their grading plans, but they're not anticipating a need for any walls. Concern regarding construction, dust, noise, and traffic. At that meeting, there was some discussion of the city's noise ordinance and when they allow work, and there was some dissatisfaction that the city code does allow for potential work on holidays and on weekends with approval. There was a request for landscaping or tree buffer on the south side of the development adjacent to Savannah Valley. It was indicated at the meeting that staff does not typically, and the code does not require enhanced landscaping between similar residential land uses, although the applicant has indicated that they're willing to continue discussions about potential enhanced screening as well. There were some concerns noted regarding drainage and elevation and how grading will tie into the city-owned outlot to the south. And with Savannah Valley being at a lower elevation, there were some concerns with the impact and view of neighboring houses above that sight line. There were some additional concerns regarding impacts to stormwater drainage or sump discharge for houses located along Narcissus and the depth of the stormwater ponds. The applicant indicated during the Planning Commission meeting that they'll continue to work on the engineering of that to reduce or eliminate any impacts. There was some discussion regarding setbacks and deviation from the 10-foot wide side yard setback. The applicant had indicated that 9 feet is the max they can feasibly make work for this development. Similarly, with the lot width, 68 feet wide, was indicated that this is the max width to be able to provide the amount of lots that would be financially feasible. There was some discussion regarding impacts to nearby intersections such as Highway 5 and Cochia. Staff indicated that the city will likely be pursuing funding for improvements to this intersection related to the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan. Also some questions regarding cost impact of the park and funding improvements in that area. So staff discussed with the folks there the way that the city funds park dedication fee, capital improvement plan, and some of those processes. There was some discussion of stormwater impacts to adjacent properties and where stormwater goes. Again, additional engineering will need to be done as part of a preliminary plat submittal to kind of narrow down all of those items. And then there was some concern expressed regarding water capacity and impacts of the watering ban. So it was discussed at that meeting, just some of the information that's been shared with the city and the council in the past related to capacity, not necessarily being the concern, but more related to the peak times of watering.
Artie, before we move on from this, I have a quick question for you. The Arboretum Transportation Plan, did that take into account that this was going, because this was the property that was going to be a school, am I right?
The property to the north, the Pulte development, was the one
Okay,
that was
all right.
originally intended to be a school.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that that transportation plan took into effect that change in use. Okay.
Thank you. There was also some a request to consider connecting a trail around the development through pond outlots to connect behind the proposed park. And in general, feedback was favorable toward the park location as well. So moving on from the neighborhood meeting, the Planning Commission did also review this sketch plat during their January 18th meeting and had a few additional comments, questions, some of them similar to the neighborhood meeting question. So there were questions about stormwater ponding and impacts, and as I noted, the applicant that indicated that ponding will be engineered to avoid those impacts. There was a concern with potentially creating backflow into basements in adjacent neighborhoods. So again, the applicant has noted that that will be engineered to avoid those impacts, including potentially exploring lining ponds if necessary to avoid any water backflow. There was a request to consider moving the trail connection that's shown on the southwest corner of the plat into Savannah Valley farther to the east so that it would directly connect to the cul-de-sac versus to the west where it's adjacent to a neighboring home. The applicant has indicated they'll continue to explore that realignment and work with staff to see if that can make some sense. It was noted, again, just more broadly, there's a necessity to further discuss and determine the best location for the Cochia Lane to cross within the development to avoid traffic and pedestrian issues. There was some broader discussion as well on how to slow traffic on Cochia through the development and a request from the Planning Commission for a four-way stop or even a small roundabout to be considered or explored. There was discussion again about the necessity for traffic improvements at Cochia Park and Highway 5 as a result of Cochia Lane being connected all the way through. There was some discussion on side yard setbacks and a reiteration of the global desire to try to get back to 10-foot side yard setbacks in developments, but there was a general support of 9-foot side yard setbacks in this situation. There was also some continued discussion on screening between development and the existing neighborhood, and as I indicated, the applicant has noted they're willing to look at potential enhanced planting in some of those areas to provide additional screening. And then there was a somewhat broader discussion of housing affordability as it relates to plats and development within Victoria. So ultimately, staff believes that the concept plan is acceptable at a concept level, as indicated in your background packet. Seems to be a adequate infill development. Obviously, there will be additional items that would need to be worked through as this comes forward in a future preliminary plat, such as addressing any buffer screening requirements, final determination on the park area, and whether or not that is desired and satisfactory, a requirement to construct Cochia Lane through the property, Obviously, a number of technical issues and adhering to all the sewer, water, and stormwater management recommendations from engineering and the MCWD, and making sure they do not impact adjacent properties. Working to try to address any of the resident concerns that have come up to the extent feasible. Further exploring possible relocation of that trail connection to Savannah Valley, and then further refining the Cochia Lane trail crossing location. So with that, mayor, members of the council, we do have representatives from both Lennar and their engineer Westwood that are here that I'm sure would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Terrific. Thank you, Mr. Dahl. Council, questions?
Yeah, I have a couple to start.
Roberts.
So obviously it's gonna be nice when Cochia is extended, but for people on that side of the city, it's definitely gonna be cut through. So I do have concerns about speed, the road, right, making sure that it's as safe as possible. I guess I'm curious, so we've talked a lot about, we know how speed studies go for roads that are current roads, right? But this is a road that is a dead end currently, and it's basically going to be a new road, right? It's going to be a full through road. How does that work when determining speed limits, crosswalks, that type of stuff to make sure that, because like I said, traffic is going to pick up there, right? And like, I'm in the Woodlands, so, currently we either have to get on Bavaria and take a left, at the stoplight on 5, or we go on 18 to the stoplight and right. This is going to be a cut through for a lot of people. So traffic patterns, I understand where people are worried about how much traffic is going to be coming through there and the speed, especially with the school right there. I'm curious how that works with basically a new full road.
Just,
Marty, do you want to take? Oh, no.
can I add on to that, just to that point? Is it possible, right? Because I live right there in that Cochia. I live right across from the school there, and the kids are kids. That they drive like kids. Is there any way to regulate one-way traffic during certain parts of the day, right? Because coming in the morning, if you're not out by 7:30, you're not going to get out just because. But if you have one way in and another way out, I don't know. I just thought, to Chad's point on that, and I don't know if that's feasible, but I just want to add on to that because I thought it was a good.
You'll note I just had to give Kara the look on that one.
Yeah.
Karen, thank you.
And
Thank you for springing into action.
I'm hoping that because there are a couple of driveways on that street that we can do 25.
Yeah, so Mayor, members of the City Council, certainly traffic is going to be a hot topic of conversation with this one, and it really, I think to Councilmember Roberts' point, it has more to do with the broader connection than this development in particular. So what staff has talked about, we've been planning for this connection. It was incorporated into the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan work that's been done. But we weren't sure how fast it was going to happen, and now we know it's going to happen fast. So we've talked about probably would be a good time to engage our traffic consultant to take a look at, with a little bit more of a lens through facts of how that traffic's going to change, what sort of cut-through traffic we would expect to see through there, so that we can make better decisions about what to do for treatment at each of the intersections or for ped crossing. Certainly speed limit, I think, will be important, particularly with the high school kids. Historically, we have had issues with speeding from the high school students when they would cut through Narcissus to try to get around, and the school's been a good partner in working with their students to talk with them about being good neighbors. But so we want to take a look at this new intersection, the intersection of 78th and Cochia, certainly. Yep, 78th and Cochia is something we would take a look at, and wanting to get some ideas related to traffic calming. I will note that this section of Cochia, I do anticipate that our construction standard will be consistent with what's north of 78th Street, which is narrow. We purposely narrowed the roads through those corridors to help with traffic calming. We do find that cars do travel more slowly with the narrower roads compared to the existing road to the south that was built back in 2000, I think. That one's wider and a rural section road, so won't have quite the same feel as we have here. So, long answer to a relatively short question. That's certainly something that staff will be working on between now and preliminary plat, and then bring back additional information for the council as part of that process.
Terrific. Thanks, Ms. Guerin. Councilmember Roberts, anything else?
Just a couple. I don't think I noticed it in there. So we had the neighborhood meeting. Was a representative from Holy Family there? Or have we talked to the school at all? Do they have any concerns with the closeness of the development or the road?
Yeah, Councilmember Roberts, Mayor, members of the council, I was unfortunately unable to attend the neighborhood meeting as I had COVID that week, so Isaac did it in my stead. We did not get any specific comments from Holy Family. They were invited. They did receive the invite. I don't recall. Do you recall if anyone from Holy Family was present at the meeting? I can't say they were not. Yeah. We haven't heard anything specific from them, but they have been notified and invited. So I imagine that will be part of our ongoing process as well as connecting with them.
Then my last question is, so I live in the Woodlands, which is close to Holy Family as well. And we do get lots of light when they have sporting events there. So just to kind of make you aware and point out, right, like with these houses close to the school, like how I don't know if you've thought about that yet with the football and soccer stadium there, but the big lights can be a major glare coming into windows at times.
You can also hear the sound of the football and soccer games, the PA announcer.
Yep.
Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Please share your name and
Yep.
position with the council.
Josh Metzer with Lennar, Mayor McMillan and members of council. Happy to be here tonight, and we're definitely excited about another opportunity here in Victoria. Things have been going very well down in our Lake Town community and many of our other communities in surrounding cities. So excited to be back here. Yeah, and regarding light and noise, what we've done in other communities, the one that pops out right in my head is we developed a community in Maple Grove next to a park that's in Corcoran where they have rodeos year-round and monster truck rallies, all of those sorts of things. Obviously, we're not going to be dealing with that level of noise and light here, but what we'll do is we have disclosures in our closing documents amongst the many things that you're required to sign and read. So we do our best to try to communicate that. Whether or not everyone reads every page, of course, you never know. But we can disclose something like that in closing documents with folks. And of course, we'll have marketing materials that'll show the site plan and would likely show the surrounding areas. And probably the model, where 2 models are allowed to, would probably be located right off Cochia there. So they would have a direct view that the school and the sports grounds are right there.
Thank you, Mr. Metzer. Councilmember Black.
Yeah, so how much are these homes going to be sold for? Sorry, I think you need to stay here for a little bit.
Yeah, and I guess maybe what I could do is give you a few points. Marty, thank you for the thorough presentation, but some points, additional points. We've got, so price range, we're probably going to start out between $490 and $590. That's starting range, of course. If someone were to finish their basement or choose upgraded finishes, certain things like that, put on a porch, it can go up from there pretty quickly. Another question was, that might come up as schedule. We're looking to submit pre-plat here, hopefully sometime in February, with City Council and Planning Commission review of that, probably sometime in May, I would think the meetings would happen. And then shortly thereafter, with a grading permit, start grading on the west half in early summer of this year, and street and utility construction starting maybe late summer, and hopefully model construction sometime in the fall there.
Okay, and then you requested a PUD, said it wasn't financially feasible to do an R1. Is our R1 different than other cities that you can't do that?
Yeah, so each city has some form of a R1 or a low, standard low density, single family type zoning. each city will vary with what the minimum lot standards are, especially with width or depth. 80-foot wide is fairly wide these days for single-family development. Our standard single-family width is 50 feet, so each of these homes that we're building here with 3-car garage are 50 feet wide. And if we're building that on an 80-foot lot, that's 15 feet of side setback on each side of the house. I would say probably over 90% of our single-family communities that we're building over the last 10 years or so in the Twin Cities, we build with a 7.5-foot side setback on each side of the house. So there's 15 feet between homes. It's something that works well for us. It works well for our homeowners. It's allows them access to their front and rear yards back and forth, which is really mostly the use of a side yard these days. So what we have here is, with the park dedication, that was approximately 8 lots that we gave up with that park dedication. So that was 10% of our lot count right there that went. So to widen these lots out any further would definitely result in additional loss of lots, and it would get to the point where the financials on the project probably wouldn't be feasible. And I would note that we recognize that we're quite a bit, at least the 4 lots to our northwest there, quite a bit wider, significantly wider than our proposed lots here, which is what we took notice of that, which is why we're pulling our lots back from that north property line to create some sort of a outlot there where we're proposing to plant trees and possibly putting some ponding in there as well to create a little bit of a space buffer. And the lots to the south of us, that Savannah Valley, that community was approved with 60-foot wide lots. So we are a little bit larger than the lots to our south. But so at 9-foot side setbacks here, that's 1.5 foot on each side of the house wider than we normally build. So in early conversations with Marty and Isaac, it was discussed, that the city is looking to get back to larger setbacks. That Pulte did come in with, I believe, requested 8-foot setbacks. We're talked into going up to 9-foot setbacks, so that's why we initially came in with 9 foot. We were initially hoping for 7.5, but didn't want to, fall on that
That's
Oh,
sword
not
necessarily.
low density on the 7.5. That's more the medium to high density, I think. I think in the future, in order for us to get back to the 10-yard setback for R1, maybe we should ask for the developers to supply pro forma, the same way we give you all of our fees. Then we can see how we can work with this. I understand where we are at this point, and I know that staff is generally comfortable with this. I'm trying to figure out what to do for the future so that we're not constantly dealing with having to compromise with what our R1 is. It seems like we're doing all PUDs.
And part of it for us too is a form of, price control. Some might think that as
Well,
developers.
500 to 600,000 for a house is not price control. I mean, if you were doing affordable housing, I could understand it, but.
Right, and if we were to go with larger setbacks and larger lots, we're talking about more land, fewer homes, so we're gonna have to charge more for each home. You'd get the same home, but you might have a larger lot. So we're charging more for the land as well with that. And, some might think that it's our goal to get our homes as expensive as possible, but, the market won't handle it. There's a certain point where the market's gonna say,
We've had enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, so.
And I understand. Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Black, anything else? No. Council?
I had a couple questions on to the neighborhood to the south, right? And the higher elevation that you're proposing, right? Is there any concern with water runoff drainage to
Yeah, I mean,
to
it's,
that neighborhood? Is there any thoughts to put in drainage tile to alleviate that? I know you haven't done the final grading yet, but just noticing the steep.
yep, it's, you know, obviously it's something that we always address with our communities. You know, it is a requirement for us to retain stormwater on our property, treat it on property before it's passed along through the storm system. We do have our, I forgot to mention, we do have our engineer, John Bender with Westwood here tonight, so perhaps John could speak to this a little bit, but what we would do here likely is install some sort of storm sewer on our south property line with catch basins, a series of catch basins and storm pipe to get the water flowing to our proposed pond.
And this may be more of a question for City, Marty. I understand there's some some city-owned outlets on on the southern property there. How would that play into this if this gets developed?
Yeah,
What does that mean?
Councilmember Haybear, Mayor, members of the council, in situations like this where we're talking about an infill development where we're truly developed nearly on all sides, I think it actually is a benefit that you have that city-owned buffer before you get into the private residential lots. It provides some additional space to help tie grades in. So if there is some grading, tweaking that needs to be done between the lots, you've got a city-owned lot that can be accomplished. It does also provide that built-in buffer between the existing neighborhoods, so you know you're not gonna have those property lines abutting each other, right next to each other. So I think it's probably more of a benefit in this situation than it is a detriment.
So in the event that the owner took that city-owned lot and put something up there, right there, I don't know if it's a swing set or whatever.
Or a fire pit, or multiple fire pits.
What does that mean?
That's a code violation. So this is an area that we've had challenges with far before my and Isaac's time as well. We know, and you can see it when you look at the aerial view. There are several encroachments into that outlot. So we have in the past, I think, provided some letters asking people to remove those. Ultimately, I think it will come down to if we really decide these things need to get out of there, we may be coming to the council and asking how much teeth we want to put behind some of those things, but it's a known issue. We have asked nicely in the past to see if some of those things can be removed, but there are, as you can tell from the map, there's several property owners, and we'd like to try to avoid that happening from the north as well, so.
Okay, thank you. And then last question, I think at the public hearing, public meeting, there was a request to move the sidewalk or the path attaching into Savannah Valley. Have you had a chance to look at that? I know that was a couple weeks ago, but what are your thoughts on making that?
Yeah, I know Westwood's been looking into that, so the idea would be to move it, I believe, 2 lots to the east, yep, to connect down with the end of the cul-de-sac there. Westwood's looking at it, working it into a grading plan right now. Of course, it will be, if we are to make it work, it would be part of the pre-plat submittal. John, I don't know how far you've gotten on it, but.
Can you come on up to introduce yourself to us, please?
Good evening, I'm John Bender with Westwood. Yes, we have started our preliminary grading design, and we took Planning Commission's recommendation to explore the option of moving that trail further to the east. I haven't completed my design yet, but my initial take on it is, yeah, that should be able to work. There's a couple benefits to that. One, as Planning Commission mentioned, it's perhaps a little less intrusive to the existing landowners to the south, but also I can consolidate my utility corridor along with that trail. So there are some benefits there. So if I can feasibly make it work, that is the route we expect to go.
Thank you, Mr. Bender.
One last question regarding the park. I know the park commission didn't have a chance to meet. Do we have any preliminary thoughts on what you're proposing for that park?
This looks like Mr. Metzer again.
Yeah, hi. So for us, it would be just dedication of land at this point. It would be to the city to determine programming for that, funding, that's basically.
Any thoughts on that, Ann?
Ms. Monkey, welcome back. Thanks for hanging around.
Thank you. Councilmember Abar, members of the council. Generally, when we have a situation like this, that we will have the park board provide comments on concept layouts of what could and could not go in the park. Also, the timing of when the construction would occur of the park. When we went through our 35 different projects of prioritization, this would now be brought into the list of projects, and a determination made then on a priority of when this would be constructed. Generally speaking, if we do not have a park plan before the houses go in, we usually will have neighborhood meetings to provide input into what the neighborhood would like to see. In a small neighborhood park like this, traditionally, you're gonna have a shelter, a playground, possibly a court of some sort. Those are just kind of the normal items that we're putting in these neighborhood parks right now, so.
Okay.
Just in, before you go.
Yep.
3 acres, where does that fall in our size park for a neighborhood?
So Rhapsody Park, if you're familiar with Rhapsody Park, that is about 3.9 acres. And Lakeside Estates Phase 1 is about 2.5. So they're kind of in the middle, if you can kind of envision what those things have.
Whispering Hills, Madeline Creek Area Park.
That's a little over 4.
It's a little.
So it's a little bigger than this one.
Councilmember Gunderson, anything else for Ms. Monkey?
No, not on the park.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hebert, back to you. Are you, anything else?
At this time.
All right, Councilmember Gunderson, anything from you?
Yeah.
All right.
Just want to, when we talk about side yard setback, the neighborhood to the north is 25 feet. I know this because it's my house. And that goes for all the buildings, the 2 lots that you see, or the 4 lots that you see with the shortened lines to the more to the east, right at that kind of abut the park or right next to the park. Those are duplexes. So the buildings themselves are far enough apart. So the side yard setback is a issue for the neighbors that back up on the north side of it. Having concerns with multiple property owners on their property lines, not just this property owner, but a few of them. So just to get that, the viewing, the one thing I didn't see, and I don't know if they talked about it, but it's not just the park, but it's also a line of sight for the homeowners that are on the south side in Savannah Valley, with the homes being so much farther up above them, they'll be levels looking at different levels. So a bedroom level looking at a living room level is what I'm understanding. Is that kind of where the elevations are at, or where are the elevations? What are they viewing? Because that was a concern of the property owner that's on the path as well, on the housing looking down where their house sits up, and then a living room or entry level is going to be right at about the same level. So that was a question that was brought up by a Savannah Valley resident.
Mr. Bender,
Again,
can you
John
help
Bender
us with that?
Westwood. As I had mentioned, we're still working through our grading design, but we're a little bit further along than we were during the planning commission. We do anticipate, partly because of this change with the trail connection and a little bit more flexibility with grades because of that, to be lowering some of our grades. There will still, of course, be an elevation difference between our homes and the neighbors to the south, but it won't be as drastic as currently exists. So I'm not anticipating someone looking out from the first floor looking directly into a second floor window. It would be more in between. They're not going to be at the same level, but it would be in between those two differences.
Okay. With the path, I brought it up at the meeting. Just curious, we do run the path up behind homes on Narcissus, and maybe Marty or Kara, and I'm not sure if this is for you, but I'm curious about the feasibility of the path running up the northwest side and coming then on the north, running east of the homes and the lots, similar to what's going, that runs behind Narcissus Lane. That comes up on Narcissus and then pretty much leads you to anywhere in the older Victoria residences leading to Lions Park. And then if that's a feasible item, the property that's in the middle, pretty much the property that would be north in the middle, right by the ponding, does have a catch basin on the property. So I'm just concerned about if the pond floods and the topography changes based on the fact that when it rains, it's no longer being utilized as regularly as it is now, coming with the drainage off the field on heavy rains. It is a river between the two homes. So that's something I would want to make sure that the ponding buffers are enough to make sure that if the catch basin is no longer being utilized, that their home doesn't flood. Just questions about the park. We talked about most of the other questions got answered between Speed and Cochia. I'm curious to find out what if we are successful on 82nd Street and Highway 18 going through, what does that do to the study? How is that going to be brought into our traffic study, and how does that affect this traffic area on cut through traffic, and are people just going to continue straight on 18 to go to other parts of Victoria?
Councilmember Gunderson, we are proposing to have our traffic assistants come from the consultant who did the Arboretum Area Transportation Plan. So they have the big model that includes all of those different corridors, so they should be able to take that into account as they're reviewing everything for us.
Anything else? Okay. Good. All right. I don't have anything to add. Like Mr. Iverson said earlier, by the time you get to me, there's nothing more to say. So I will go with that. And we aren't getting any official action this evening. We're just providing that feedback. So I think, Marty, we have everything, you have everything we need, and the developers as well from the council. Perfect. Then we will move on to reports and emerging issues. We'll start with Attorney Lose. Do you have anything?
Mayor, Council, I have nothing I have to tell you.
All right, terrific. Ms. Hardy, anything from staff?
Nothing from staff, Madam Mayor.
And council, anything from council? No? Mr. Gunderson?
I just had a couple
Councilmember
things.
Gunderson, please.
We got I believe we all got it, was addressed to us, an email from Deb Barber and the Met Council discussing some of the funding that we may be receiving in the future. Just want to make sure that we're talking about how we're utilizing those additional funds, how they may be utilized, and to make sure that we stay on top of some of the Met Council formulas that they talk about. I think some of the formulas are a little outdated, and when the pandemic happened, unlike entering cities, we did not lose traffic. We actually gained more daily traffic because people stayed home. So the funding for us on a per capita basis may not be representative of how often our streets are getting traffic now versus what they were prior to the pandemic. I just like to make sure that we're staying on top of those and reiterating the fact that we are the fastest growing community, one of the fastest growing counties in the state. And sometimes when you say, well, it's per capita, well, that's great, but we actually got more traffic now because of that.
Right.
And so our roads may need more upkeep. We may need more newer, more modern connections and traffic signals and things like that. So I just want to make sure that we're moving ahead with that in mind, and keeping that in mind. One of the other things, I don't know if I can ask it, just because it was addressed singularly to me, but it was regarding feedback I got from a resident regarding, what do we call it? The development behind the firehouse.
Oh, I got one too.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that we're communicating, if we're able to, as legally as we can at meetings, about the feedback we're getting from community members, and addressing the gaps in their information, just to make sure that they're getting the same information that we're getting, so that we can answer their questions as best we can, but not to duplicate efforts that we do at the meetings. Because I think there was some, I don't know, maybe misconception that we were supporting something before it even got to us. And I was a little.
Yeah, me too.
It was not, the information that was put out before the actual project got to us was frustrating. To have to go over and say, no, that was not our information that got out. That was information being pushed by a developer. And for future developments and other amenities, no matter what they are, I want to make sure that the information that gets out regarding our decisions and our discussions get out there the way that we talk about them at the council. Because not everybody does watch us on TV. Amazingly. I don't think I've received a Nielsen rating on us. So, it's just that I want to make sure that we're getting the information out there, that our perspective is as a council is getting out. Not a developer saying there's a lot of buzz about a project. And that's great that there is a lot of buzz about a project, but it has to be us representing us and the developer representing them. And then we work together to smooth out any disagreements or things that we think need to change, and work collaboratively with our developer partners that way.
Yeah, I brought that up with them as well, so.
Otherwise, I'm good, sorry.
All right, that's fine. Anything else?
I just have one thing.
Yes. Councilmember Black?
We made the paper because we had our 4-minute meeting last time. And one of the things that I really wanted to thank our community is the fact that last year we received $21,000 in donations for the amenities that we provide for them. And I just wanted to say thank you, how much we appreciate it, and keep it coming. And if you have a project that you want and you want to start, and we don't have the funds for it, if you want to start a donation type project, I think we're more than happy to help set that up for you. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Black?
Mayor, I thought
Yes.
I remembered. Just reminding everyone, it's maybe a little bit late, but I'm guessing we are not done with snow yet, but reminding people to shovel out around fire hydrants for our fire department, so that if God forbid you have a fire, that they can get to the fire hydrants. So I know there's been issues, so.
Yes, thank you for that. It's a good point.
Yes.
Anything else? All right, with that, we have nothing more to come before the body this evening. So I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion. Can I get a
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.